Hey everyone and welcome back to the first few hours of Civilization 6. So, let's continue where we left off. We are fighting Monty, and the one major thing left in this game is the city siege. Because I wanted to check out the city siege mechanics for sure, which was one of the reasons why I didn't build things like Siege Tower, which bypasses the city walls. I didn't want to bypass the city walls, I wanted to see how exactly that works, and how hard it will be to break through the city walls yourself. So you will get to see that. Not just yet, but I am pushing towards Tenochtitlan. And I have to say, after playing the game at this event, I am really looking forward to playing more. There are so many things I wanted to test, but there just wasn't enough time to do all of that. And I already have a few ideas how to optimize districts and city placement, for example, and I'm looking forward to testing them. Speaking of districts, remember that districts get adjacency bonuses from other districts. Any districts, not just ones that belong to that specific city. So that makes city placement and district planning quite interesting. There are a few interesting things that you can do with that. Same applies to wonders. If you place a wonder, like my hanging gardens, if I build hanging gardens somewhere between my three cities, I could use it for adjacency bonuses with all of these cities. Because the theater district gets bonus from adjacent wonders, any wonders. It doesn't have to be a wonder that was built in that specific city. It just has to be an adjacent wonder. So there will be a few interesting strategies for city placement for sure. And yeah, here you can see that my city is built quite literally on top of Niter. That was quite convenient right there. And there's none other anywhere close. But like I mentioned before, strategic resources are still work in progress, actually. That's why there aren't too many. In fact, there are very few. There's one more Niter to the east of Tenochtitlan, and that's about it. And here we got military tactics, so that unlocks the pikemen. And at this point, I tried to get some more units to recruit, because I wanted to unlock as many units as possible. On the other hand, I still got a boost for mass production, and that's the only one I got right now, so we will be grabbing that. It's a great tech for naval empires, so not me in this case, but it unlocks the Venetian arsenal, which gives you a second naval unit every time you train one. So that's a pretty damn good wonder. Meanwhile, we are almost at the gates of Tenochtitlan. I will be getting a catapult, in fact one is already heading in this general direction, so that's what's supposed to make up for the lack of siege tower. The catapult is an actual unit, not a support unit, because the siege tower is a support unit, but the catapult is an actual proper military unit. It's only one, but it should be enough. One catapult is still pretty damn good when Monty is mostly using Eagle Warriors. I'm not sure if he had access to other units at this point, as in more advanced units, or did he just value his unique unit that much? Because in Civ 5, the AI tends to value unique units a lot, sometimes a little bit too much, which can lead to some funny situations, like Korea recruiting a crap ton of turtle ships, when they are clearly useless in the context of the map. So that's actually one of the AI behaviors that I would really like to see adjusted in Civ 6. And the turtle ship is actually a great example, because not only it's a unique unit and AI tends to like unique units a lot, it also has unusually high combat strength for its era, Renaissance era, and since combat strength is what affects total military strength, the AI tends to put way too much value in that unit. It's the same reason why the AI tends to spam carriers a lot, and even though carrier literally cannot attack on its own, it cannot melee attack, it still has combat strength, it has 40 combat strength, and it doesn't cost any strategic resources, so the AI often tends to spam that unit a lot. I really hope Civ 6 will eliminate these kinds of weird AI behaviors. A few people asked me what my number one concern is when it comes to Civilization 6, and that would be the AI. How smart will the AI be? And I don't mean smart in terms of being able or not being able to beat the human player, because in a game like this, the human player will always be able to outsmart the AI, unless the AI has massive advantages. That's just the reality of it. What I actually mean is, will the AI be smart enough to actually use all these new game mechanics? And some of them actually get quite complex. Will the AI be able to use Eureka boosts efficiently? Will the AI be able to plan and develop effective cities? Will the AI be able to use the new core and army mechanics? Will the AI be able to use support units properly? Like, for example, the medic support unit. I didn't quite get a chance to showcase that unit in this game, but there is a medic support unit in the mid-game which heals adjacent units, as you might imagine. So it's all these kinds of things. In Civ 5, the AI does a lot of really stupid things. Like, you probably know that the AI literally cannot use ranged units properly in Civ 5. It cannot move and then fire. And actually, I was talking with a friend of mine from the Civ 5 modding community, and he said it's almost like a joke within the Civ 5 modding community. So one modder says to the other modder, "Hey, I improved the AI." And the other one says, "Can it move and then fire with a ranged unit on the same turn?" Same goes for naval units, because it's way more visible with naval ranged units. Because something like an archer only has 2 movement points, and a battleship has 5 base movement points. So if you're incapable of moving a battleship and then firing with it on the same turn, that makes the unit almost completely useless. And these aren't exactly complex mechanics. While Civ 6 has some pretty damn complex mechanics, optimizing cities alone will really not be easy, especially when you consider that districts get adjacency bonuses from other districts, and these other districts don't have to belong to the same city. So optimizing your cities will take more than just optimizing within one single city. And I'm not sure how well the AI will be able to handle that. So that would be my #1 concern for the Civ 6. Having said that, the AI seems to be smarter so far. Like, for example, it tends to use rough terrain for defensive bonuses. It also tends to withdraw wounded units. So that's a good sign, but that doesn't really say much about its ability to use Eureka boosts to optimize cities and do things like that. Anyway, let's actually talk about what's going on right now, because we are attacking Tenochtitlan, and you might have noticed already that each city has 2 different stats. Right here, it has Garrison Strength and it has Fortification Health. Fortification Health depends on things like city walls, and Garrison Strength is what you have to bring down to 0 in order to actually capture the city. And when you attack the city, you do damage to fortifications first, and anything inside will barely take any damage. When I attacked the city just a moment ago with my knight, the city lost some fortification health, but only 3 garrison health, which is pretty much nothing considering the total is 200. So you cannot really realistically take the city before bringing the fortification health down to 0, unless you have a unit like the siege tower, and the siege tower allows you to bypass the city walls basically. Here we finished mass production, which isn't going to be the most useful tech of all times in our situation. We are not really a naval empire, but there we go, we finished it regardless. So now I have a few options. I don't have any boosts, because I wasn't really focusing on boosts anymore, because this game was pretty close to being done, because I was about to run out of time, and I wanted to take that city from Monty. Having said that, we will get to Industrial Era before this game ends, just barely. Oh, and here's one of the new wonders in Civ 6, in banking. I didn't hover over it for very long, but it's the Great Zimbabwe wonder that's unlocked by banking. It gives you an extra trade route. It also gives trade routes originating from this city extra gold for every bonus resource in this city's territory. And it must be built adjacent to a commercial hub district with a market and adjacent to a cattle. So these are fairly specific conditions, but it's going to be a really good wonder for gold if you have a city with a lot of different resources, because that's extra gold for each different bonus resource in this city's territory. If you have like 5 or 6 different bonus resources, that's going to be tons of extra gold for every trade route from this city. It will be a really nice situational wonder. Also, I'm not sure if you noticed in my earlier episodes, but since we are at war, I think it's worth pointing out. When you have the most envoys with a city-state, the city-state will join your wars, but not only that, you can actually pay gold to temporarily take control of that city-state's military. That's actually really interesting. Now, I don't know how much gold we're talking about exactly, and how long you will be able to control their military, because as you might have noticed, I did have free envoys in quite a few city-states, but I was not the thief with the most envoys in any of the city-states. But that does also mean the AI was fairly decent at getting envoys, so at least there's that. That goes back to my concerns about the AI, I suppose. On another note, you probably noticed that I hovered over my income just a moment ago, and there are a few interesting things going on there. The knight, for example, costs 3 gold per turn to maintain, so that's not a cheap unit. The catapult costed 2 gold per turn to maintain, and the archers costed 1 each, while the crossbowmen costed 3. So upgrading an archer to a crossbowman triples that unit's maintenance costs. It's definitely something to consider when building up and upgrading your army, especially if you have a tight budget, let's just say. Maintaining a big and advanced army is definitely not going to be cheap, and you will have to keep an eye on your income, otherwise you might find yourself losing gold. We are still working on our siege, and you are about to see the difference between regular units and a catapult when it comes to fortification damage. So our regular units do 8-9 damage to cities' defenses, and here's the catapult. Only 1, unfortunately. And the catapult did 20 damage to city defenses. So that is pretty decent. It did more or less double damage of the knight. It also did 6 damage to the garrison. But we will have to bring down the fortifications to 0. Once fortifications reach 0, you start doing tons of damage to the garrison. So if you are defending, you really need to have city walls. Leaving a city without city walls is going to be an invitation for anyone to conquer you, really. Because not only you will not be able to use city bombardment, you need city walls in order to use city bombardment. Your city will be able to be captured very, very easily. Here we are still working on our city to the north. And I'm checking out the districts. I kind of needed some gold at this point, so I was really considering where to build a district. But in the end, I decided to not build a district and go for a trader instead. Mostly because I can get a trader much faster, and that's still a decent source of gold. And I had some relatively safe trade routes to city-states in the northeast. And back to Tenochtitlan. The AI turns are taking a while, but this is a very early build. I assume it will be faster in the final game. And here's Cleopatra, still wanting to buy our great work. I know my great work wasn't the only one, though. I know Monty had one. So at least I know I wasn't the only person with a great work. He's trying to attack the catapult, which is pretty smart. That is the most dangerous unit, from his point of view at least. So this might be a good moment to back up with that catapult. But it did 2 units worth of damage in 1 turn, so it's not terrible. You can see that the city garrison is going down a bit, but yeah, like I said, we have to destroy these fortifications. However, if I had a siege tower, I could take this city much quicker. I actually think the siege tower is going to be a pretty scary unit, and it is going to be almost crucial for city sieges early in the game, and by early I mean before industrial era or so. Here we got a builder from the goodie hut, so I suppose that's actually quite convenient. I can use it to improve some of these resources. I'm going to attack some units near Preslav, not because I cared about the city-state all that much, but because I didn't want him to suddenly change his mind and attack me instead. It was a good idea to weaken them a little bit, and we will back up with the catapult. There was no need to just throw it away. We will save it, and I will move in with the Great General. The unit left Tenochtitlan, so it's a good idea to kill it at this point. That was the garrison unit. so killing it will be helpful. We'll have to dedicate the entire turn to actually doing it, but that's okay. It's worth getting rid of it. And now the only thing he can really do is use the city bombardment. Having said that, we are not quite done with this siege just yet. We'll need a few more turns to actually finish it. Meanwhile, we can work on our city a little bit more, get a few more farms. Not a lot of bonus resources to improve, just one, and we do not actually have that tile. And I didn't want to spend gold to buy tiles at this point. That was not a good idea at all. Meanwhile, in Rio, I will recruit a masked man, but it will take 6 turns or so, which means he won't really see a whole lot of action. But I will recruit one before the game is over. And in Recife, I think we'll just work on culture. Yep, my culture was a little bit low compared to my science. I'm actually curious how viable it will be to focus on culture instead of science, and progress through the civic tree more than through the tech tree. Because you kind of can't focus on both at the same time, if only because you can't build multiple districts all at the same time. But you can get quite a lot of culture. If you get a wonder or two, the adjacency bonuses for theater districts alone will be worth quite a lot of culture. And the civic tree does unlock some units, so I'm actually quite curious just how viable it will be to focus on culture more than on science. I'm not saying you should neglect science, but just a bit of a shift towards culture. It's supposed to be viable, but, you know, there's no real way to know without actually playing the game yourself and testing it. But I know that was one of the ideas here. It's supposed to be viable to go more for culture than science. But whether it's going to work or not remains to be seen. We'll attack some more units over there. I'm actually kind of surprised that he didn't try to kill my archer. He just kind of ignored him. So I don't know, it was slightly strange, let's just say. And my knight to the east is actually blocking that Eagle Warrior. It's one of the reasons why I was fortified with it. As opposed to actually attacking the city, I didn't want to lose too much health with units coming in from the east. So I kept it fortified on purpose. That was the plan. The city is also regaining some garrison strength, as you might have noticed. It's just what I said, you really have to destroy the fortifications, or you need a way to bypass them, one or the other. So you either need a few units that get a bonus versus cities, like the Catapult, or you need a few support units, like the battering rams or the siege towers. Still losing a little bit of gold, but it's not nearly as bad as it was previously. And Tenochtitlan doesn't have a lot of time left. If Monty sent more units to defend, it would have been harder. He seems to be focused on city-states a lot. If you look to the northeast, he is also attacking Hattusa, and he's attacking Preslav to the southwest, while I'm taking his capital. That was a little bit strange, because I'm clearly threatening his capital a lot at this point, and he was still attacking the city-states. I don't know, that was a bit of a weird behavior, but whatever. I would have taken the city still, especially since my units are much stronger, but I would have needed a few extra units, possibly. And we finished the castles research, and we also finished medieval fairs, which unlocks a few useful policies, including one that will give us more gold. So that was pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie. And I will swap out my diplomatic policy there. That was pretty much one of the reasons why I went for medieval fairs. I didn't like giving up the influence, because that is also such a nice policy. But I wanted the gold, so we'll get the gold from Merchant Confederation. And I think you can already see that there are some really tough decisions to be made as far as policies go. I did swap out my wildcard policy because I was hoping to get another great person of a different type in this game, but unfortunately that is not going to happen. There just wasn't enough time left. And with just one military and economic policy in this government, there are some really tough choices to be made. There are so many really nice policies there. But there we go. Our agenda is set. But I'm going to make a cut here and continue in the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.